Okay, it's come up in this pantheism video, but just in general, my difficulty with discussing atheism with atheists. I have no trouble discussing um, theism with theists, but atheism with atheists, big problem. The main issue is, we accept certain structures and because of our epistemologies that make the whole conversation kind of moot. I mean, look, the most noble version of the atheism debate is a sort of agnosticism, right? I try to achieve that by, though I call myself an atheist, I follow that as without theism, the title of this video, rather than anti-theism. Okay. However, there's a big difference. We will never know if there's a God. Look, nobody has defined God. We still have to define God. I've tried to define God. Now, I'm a materialist and an atheist. Fine, I can define what I think God is in terms of materialism and atheism. Other people don't have to accept it, right? Now, I believe that I have looked at this one way that solves it, and I have accepted this solution, and that is that atheism, right? Atheism is about worship. So, all of the definitions of God, whether it's love or whether it's the thing that created the universe or any of these other things, have to do with worship. Well, if that's true, I know enough about worship that I don't have to know about the thing in question to know I don't want to worship it. You see, I don't want to worship anything. I understand psychology of worship. I think it's bullshit. I am able, unlike other people perhaps, to intensely respect something, to be very conscientious, for example, to have a different set of habits than my ordinary, slovenly, mundane habits when interacting with it. For example, when I was in school, though I was a very cynical and I would argue with my teachers and all the rest, when I respected a teacher, or even when I didn't, there are certain things that I would make sure were a part of my behavior, certain behaviors, of respect and trying to do the communication a way they understood, and so on and so forth. And I do not have to worship. Now, in my life, I have seen that I have, for example, loved a band when I was 18 to the point of worship. Fine, I cured myself. That has always been a bad thing. I still love that band. It's happened many times. I still love all of the artists that I have. I have a tendency to worship artists. I have overcome that, and I have not suffered at all in my ability to appreciate art or the work of those particular artists. So the issue is with worship. Now, I think, first of all, define God any way you want, it's going to be incoherent. Or why? Because you're trying to justify worship. And so often, atheists and everybody else, they argue about, well, was there a creator of the universe? In Spinoza was like, it was created, so whatever respect creating the universe should convey, something gets that respect, even if it's just the universe itself for luckily bursting into existence. Okay, there's a lot more to it than that. But I mean, that's the basic. It's kind of a reductionist thing of, hey, if it's so respectful that when we find the creator, it's going to be our God, then it's our God. So, fine. Nice little logic there, except for nothing is our God, because nothing deserves, needs, or legitimately wants to be worshipped. All right? It is a totally obedient slave's mentality to consider it a good idea to worship something on a bunch of assumptions having to do with whether it's love, something benevolently wonderful that you want to worship, or whether it's something terribly strong and it created everything so it can crush you with its slightest effort. Either way, I'm not going to worship it. I know already I'm not going to worship it. That is why I don't believe in theism. I'm not going to worship it. I'm not going to worship the principles of science. I'm not going to worship ancestors. I'm not going to worship a book. I'm not going to worship a historical figure. I'm not going to worship artists. I'm not going to worship, well, except for Jimi Hendrix.